National Fire Radio.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to, I guess this is a very special episode of the Size Up podcast by National Fire Radio, because what you do off the job matters. And when I say special, it's not just because of my guest today, who I'm stoked to chat with, but this is episode 100. So I made it to triple digits, which I guess is cool, right? Like, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. That's where we're going to leave on that end. It's very cool for me. And I say this every episode, and I want to thank everybody for listening. But really, in this one, I want to thank those 99 folks. Well, it's probably a little less than 99 because a few were repeats. So 94, let's say, or something, folks that spent an hour with me, gave up their time, kind of believed in the mission of the Size Up, that what you do off the job matters kind of ethos we've gone with, and came on to share their stories, and a lot of the folks that I've had on here, I've had, I guess using the word an agenda is bad, right? But I had an idea of what we were going to talk about. And I got to say, most of the time, that idea just totally got flipped on his head when we started talking. And there were even a few folks that shared some very personal things about their life story that I didn't know prior, and that some even said they never shared before. And for me, that means so much, getting to help them share their story, getting to be a part of their story, and allowing all of you listeners to just listen to that story. So keep the comments coming, the messages, the thank yous, all that. I pay attention to it. I always respond to it. So no matter what, you're going to hear back from me at some point. But it just kind of keeps me motivated and trying to find new guests. So if you are listening and you have a story, or you do some cool stuff off the job, or you just want to spend an hour BSing with me, like I'm going to do with my guest today, hey, let's do it, right? So hit me up on the IG, or hit National Fire Radio up on their page. And yeah, so enough about me. Anyway, great guest today. Been a friend for a few years now. Part of the National Fire Radio platform. I don't even know, whatever we call ourselves these days. What do we call ourselves?
I think we're a family at this point.
Is it a family? Like, is it?
I think so.
Be,
a very dysfunctional family, but it's a family.
I was thinking the dysfunction is in there. But so if you don't know his voice already, that is Mickey Farrell from Top Floor Tactics and all the other things he does. Welcome to the show, buddy. I'm happy to have you.
Bip, thanks so much. 100. That's a huge task to take on, and you did it. And I'm very honored to be your 100th guest. So thank you so much, man.
Nah, no worries. We've been talking about this for a while too, and it just has never happened. We've just been too lazy to put it together, I feel like, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's busy. I think just getting one episode out a week is a lot. It really is. And if you're consistent, which you've been, and I feel we both been pretty consistent with this process, that it takes work. I don't think people realize the commitment when you jump into something like this, how much time really goes behind it, because we're not only recording, but then we're editing, we're doing all these things on the back end where people don't see that. And hopefully it portrays through as art at some point, but it is an art form. It really is. And there's a lot of work that goes behind it,
I love it. I've never been called an artist before, so thank you for that. That is a first for me, because I can't draw a straight line or sing a note to save my life. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, honestly though, like this is an art form,
Yeah,
and
it's a new art form too.
Yeah, but it's very obvious when you go through all the thousands and thousands and thousands of podcasts out there that you find what you enjoy, whatever that may be, and everything's a little bit different. Everyone has their own style, and finding your own style, I think it's a growth, it's a process, and then when you find it, I think people fall in love with it, and then and that's how it kind of builds. But you can't get to that point without consistency, and that's exactly what you've shown. So congratulations.
Thank you. Consistency is key in everything, right? Fitness, family, firefighting, even though we're not going to talk much about firefighting today because Mickey has requested that we don't do that because he does that enough.
I'm tired of it.
I'm over it. We're both over it, right? But I do find myself being, I don't want to say hypercritical of other podcasts now, how you're saying it's an art form, but like when I look at some of the shows that I listen to by very famous people, and they'll be like mid-statement and they cut in with an ad. And I'm like, who does that? Why would you do that? Wait till the pause. And I'm finding myself like, I don't ever want that to happen on my show. And I don't know if that's just my own criticalness or whatever, but I pick up these little things. I don't know if you do that too now that you have a bunch of shows out there.
I think that the main thing is, yes, you can start a podcast from using your iPhone, and that's the truth of it. But I think that what separates a lot of it is spending a little bit extra money, getting the right mic, getting the right board, because I know the second I turn onto a podcast, and if that sound quality is not A plus, I'm not interested. I try to get through it. Certain guests you'll hang in there for, but it's that's what separates a lot of them. Is just, I think, the quality of the sound. It wants to be soothing. It has to be soothing for you if you're going to pay attention, I feel. And there's so much chaos in the world that when you put a podcast on, you don't want to hear all the background noise and you're sitting in a diner, all the clinking, everything else. Like, that's what it sounds like sometimes. And I think that's what separates a lot. And when you go back to some of older episodes from like 2017, 18 from other podcasters, that you can see the quality or hear the quality, especially because then there wasn't so much of the visual. It was mainly audio. And I love when you go back to like the beginning of somebody's show from like years ago, and then you bring it to the most recent, and there's such a growth that's important. And we have to keep growing and keep investing and moving forward.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of it, right? And I think that again speaks to our dysfunctional family, right? Because we probably wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the National Fire Radio platform and kind of what that's afforded to the two of us. It wasn't even, I was a podcast guest, and Jeremy was like, "You should have your own show. Like, let's do some stuff." And I did do a little bit with Ryan Pennington there and Views from the Jump Seat as just kind of playing around. I never really thought much of it. But when you look back at those early days of even other shows I was on, I was on, if I remember early on with 555, some of the bigger publications out there were starting with, I think they called it like Blog Talk Radio, right? You remember that? Was that right? And to think about, probably how horrible those episodes sounded compared to the quality that we're up to today. It's just unreal. It's almost like black and white TV.
No, you're right. And I think that speaks volumes, though. But it also opens a platform for just for so many different genres of whatever it is you're into. And that's why, like, I remember Howard Stern, right? I used to listen to Howard Stern before he got too liberal. Now I can't listen to him anymore, but yeah, he's out of his mind.
No politics over here, Mickey. We don't talk politics.
That's not, right? Listen, liberal, right? Being a liberal is not a politician. I wouldn't think it's political, but what I'm saying is that he got too far crazy, and I had to stop listening. But I remember when people were podcasting when it first came out, and he was crushing them left and right. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, he has to realize, like, the podcast is never going to be his competition. But I think that pendulum has swung, and I think that the podcast really is the competition for almost everything, from all the socials. Like, it is developed into, from audio, now it's visual, and I think that's a big growth of it. But you don't need to be the visual side of it. I don't necessarily like the visual side of it. It just adds one more element of stress when you're trying to record. Like, if you could just talk into a microphone, you could talk all day long. But when you look into the camera, which is not natural for most people, I find that to be a challenge in its own,
Oh, it's horrible. Like, and even now with the new camera that we both have, the one I'm using today, like, I'm trying to not look at you and look in the camera, and I have such a hard time not looking at you. Like, I like to read your facial expressions, and it's just not something that's easy to do, like going back and forth. But in that Howard Stern end of it too, to kind of go back to that, like, I remember listening to him driving to high school. That was like the first not music that I think I listened to that wasn't like my parents listening to NJ 101.5 crap that they spewed for their whole career. And listening to him then, I was just like, this dude is out of control. And now, if you go back and listen to those episodes, I mean, that's like watching NBC today, I guess, or Fox, right?
Yeah, when I was in elementary school, we had this guy, or this kid I grew up with, and his brother was like a senior or something like that, and he used to record, like, on a cassette tape, Howard Stern in the morning, and then on the other side, he had Jerky Boys. So on the way to school, we would listen to the next day's episode. So he would record Monday. Then Tuesday, we listened to Monday, and the bus driver would put it in, and we listened to Howard Stern on the way to school. And on the way home, go to side B, and then you'd have Jerky Boys for the ride home. It's just funny because, like, we thought it was like this crazy thing that we were doing, we're all giggling in the back. But
those bus rides were classic, man. If your bus driver was letting you listen to the Jerky Boys, that was a great bus driver right there.
I had great bus drivers. I used to make mixtapes of all hip hop. like in like the late 80s, right? Like Eric B. and Rakim, Public Enemy, the Kid and Play, all these songs in the 80s. And we'd pop it in and like we'd be bumping all the way to school. Like, yeah, like growing up in the suburbs, like and riding the bus thinking we're in
Bumping
Compton,
the Public Enemy and NWA,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what it is. Do you remember too, like you're making those mixtapes? Okay, so kids that are listening, there was a cassette tape and you could record to it. But you had to be really good with your fingers. You had to like stop it at the right time or hit pause if you were really good, so you didn't get that like click, click, click in between the songs.
And if you really, really liked a girl, you would make her a mixtape, and that was love right there. If you passed that mixtape on, man, that was love.
Do you have any mixtapes that girls made you still?
I think I do at my parents' house. Yeah, if I started going through some of those cassettes, there's probably some on there.
I do. I definitely know for a fact, like in my box of old stuff, that there's like 3 or 4 that were made for me, which again meant true love towards me.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like a competition. Like, what could you do? And then if you were really slick about making a mixtape for a girl or a boy, whoever you were making a mixtape for, you were interested in, you went back to like your parents' vinyl and you hooked the vinyl up to the system, and then you threw in like a Beach Boys song or like like some like old school Barry White or something like that, right?
Yeah.
To be like totally like you wanted her or him to be like, I've never heard this song before. Be like, that's how much you mean to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and you save certain songs for certain people. It was again going back to that art form. That was an art form in itself, man. Everything's about like the root of creativity,
Yeah, and again, see, this is where you come from with your mindset stuff that I love to listen to. Like seeing it all as an art form. I just saw it as I was trying to hook up with a girl. Like that there would be a chance for me to maybe, have relations with a young lady when I was younger.
Yeah, I used to do the mixtape too. So when we played basketball, every team would come out to a different song. I don't know if this was a thing in your school or not, but so
I didn't
I
play
was in charge of
basketball, Mickey. Nice short choke. Thanks. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Win.
That's a good one. Well played. But yeah, so I used to make the mixtape and then we'd come out and warm up to that. And like that was a lot of pressure too, because everyone's watching, everyone's waiting to hear what that new song is. A lot of times it was Eric B and Rakim. That was a big one coming out too. But yeah, I miss those days. Like my son's playing basketball now and we're going to the games, and it's fun to relive that a little bit and just remember the warm up and like in the locker room and like getting pumped up to go out there. I really think that like sports in general, but basketball really it parallels the fire ground quite a bit. So I really like the X's and O's of sports and understanding where you fit in. And I think that really there's an art behind that, and there's an understanding of truly the IQ of the game. And then when you parallel that to the fire ground, it's very, very similar. So I think that ultimately when I'm watching sports, a lot of times I'm not necessarily like rooting for a team to win or lose. I'm just watching the positioning of the players. And I think that when you can understand firefighting on that level, it makes it that much easier to understand the basics and not get kind of caught up in like, not the drama, but like a lot of what the book says transferring to theory. If you just understand the basis of X's and O's firefighter IQ versus sports IQ, it's very similar.
Yeah. And again, it's a great little parallel because, I think maybe even just today I saw a post that you had made. You threw that old ladder video in there, that FDNY ladder video, guys with their jeans on the fire escape and 8 million
Love
people
it.
coming out, right? And it's so simple. And I'm not saying we don't need to learn about science and we don't need to learn about flow paths and we don't need to think of all these other things that can be happening. But in its core, keeping that simplicity is what makes for successful firegrounds, and then you and I have been on enough of them where if every player plays their part and does their role, things tend to work out a lot better than when you have the person not on that team.
Yeah. And if you what you just said, and then one step further is that when we restudy the books, and obviously we have to study to take a test, but you can study art, right? So it's like going to college and like minoring in whatever kind of art that you're into, right? American art, right? So you go in there and you're studying art, but it's not until you actually get that palette in front of you, that canvas, where you can transform what you've read or learned about and then see what comes out of you, like from how you feel and how you interpret things. And I think that that's what's beautiful about firefighting is that it really can be like a little bit of style behind everyone's firefighting abilities. And we still have to maintain our position, maintain the basics, maintain everything we read in the book. But when you add a little bit of style to that, the way you carry your tools, the way you walk into the building, that tempo, that flow, that rhythm, it all corresponds back to creativity. It all corresponds back to an art form. They say that truck work is more of an art where the engine company is more of a science. And I don't necessarily believe with that because stretching is such an artistic sense of understanding of stretching that line, getting it into position, and you have a long stretch. Like good engine companies take a lot of pride in that stretch, and it's taking pride in stamping the approval of what you can do in the artistic form, how you look at the building, how you can look at a building and understand how many lengths you need, how we're going to stretch this, and calling for water. It's all a systematic method that comes back to creativity. I think it always falls back to that. And we get lost with that in firefighting because we're such type A personalities, military jocks, aggressive, raw, right? And we all have that, but we have to sometimes step back and just kind of love the just be romanticized about what this job really is, you know?
No, and again, like going back to my engine company days, that stretch is art, right? I can now on the truck walk by the stretch and be like, they're screwed. Like
Yeah.
that is not nice art, right? You watch and hey, we're talking about firefighting, but anyway, you watch like 10 gajillion videos online, and it's like, oh, look at how nice your hose is packed in your cross lay, and then the guy goes and pulls it, and it's spaghetti at the pump panel, and
Yeah.
that's not the part of art that you want to care about, right? That art is in that lay, and you're so successful, and I think it's just like a painting almost, and I've never compared it to this, but like every brushstroke is adding to the success of that paint, just like everyone's job on the fire ground, whether you're the nozzle firefighter or you're the control person, as you guys say in the FDNY, if you still say it that way. But whatever you are, your strokes all matter to make the evolution successful.
Yeah. As long with art, and I parallel chess a lot. I don't know if you play the game of chess or not, but I study chess. I'm not like overly top studying it, but my son plays chess. We sit down, we play a few times a week together. I'm always somewhat reading about it, but chess parallels the fireground as well, where even a pawn moving into position early in the game that can set up the final destination of checkmate by just where you move that pawn. And that's as simple as if you're a truckie and you're walking into the fire building and stepping over a coupling that's on a parked car tire, rather than
You leave
moving
it.
it, stepping over it and say, well, that's the engine's art. I don't want to mess up their art. Well, it's understanding where you fit in as well and picking that coupling up and just moving it off the tire. That's enough as the pawn moving into position and ultimately water on the fire's checkmate. And so understanding where you fit in, but the details, right? Everything is about details in life. And that's not necessarily something that we're teaching young firefighters, is that we have to pay attention to the details. When you're sizing up a building, look at the address, look at the color of the building, because if things go sideways, maybe those little details matter when you're calling for a mayday, you know?
Yeah, I mean, all of that is stuff that we've always talked about, but I think we're just looking at it in such a different way. And again, recurring theme with me here, but like, you're talking a lot about your son, and I think about my boys as well, like, and how we parent them. And for me, it's not the exact same way I was parented, because society is very different than it was. You are not giving your bus driver a mixtape these days to bump NWA on the way to school, because that's going to get you in trouble. There's just no doubt about it. And not that there may be anything wrong with it, but it's going to get you in trouble. And it's those same kind of parallels with firefighting that look like you post those great old videos, man, right? The 80s, and guys with jeans on and hip boots, and then you have some folks that are like, oh, I want to go back to those days. Like, I don't think you want to go back to those days, because I like my bunker pants and protecting the areas that they protect that jeans did not.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I think that's what truly romanticized the job, was that era, like that 70s into 80s, at least for me. Long coats, 3/4 boots, leather helmets, big mustaches like yourself there, like, so that's that was firefighting to me. And that's what we always wanted to be. It's funny to see the transition though from that era into the late 90s into the early 2000s, where people were still holding on to that. Myself as well. I wanted to emulate what they did, keep your waist belt hanging, all these things that I saw. In reality, now fast forwarding to where we are today, I was just talking with the probies a couple of weeks ago at the academy, and I was telling him, I go, wearing your gear right is cool. Like, not, they don't wear their gear sometimes, not the probies, but you see guys not wearing their gear properly because they think it's cool. That's not cool anymore. Wear your gear, all of it, because that's the difference of going to war and coming home versus going into battle and getting wounded very quickly and retreating. You have to be able to go to where you have to go and get back. But we all have to be on the same page. And that starts with the company officer. If he's not ready to go to battle, then his men are not going to follow him. But flip that around. If you're the company officer and all your guys are ready to go to war, you have to be able to go where they can go and lead them.
Yeah, and do you know what I can tell probies is, do you know how much my shoulders hurt on the regular from not wearing my waistband for all those years? Like, yeah. And then finally putting it on and being like, oh, those guys weren't lying about this taking the pain off your shoulders when you're wearing these things on your back. Like, it's such a different thing. But do you think those guys, like your dad, my dad, in the 80s, like the guys in the 60s, like that romanticized the fire service for people like that, watching guys ride, I mean, my dad rode, I don't know when your dad was in, but my dad rode on the back step and all that kind of stuff. But like, or prior to that, like, oh, I wish we still had the horses. I think firefighters have been saying that their whole lives, just like anybody would.
Yeah. I think that probably, if you think back to the 50s, right, the convertible rigs, 50s into the 60s, that convertible rig, everyone had their helmet on, even the chauffeur driving, like it's black and white, had one little gumball on top going, like
hand cranking a siren, like
yeah. So my grandfather came on the job, I don't even know, I guess in probably the early 50s. And there's some photos of him like in those rigs, and that's pretty cool. But my dad like lived at the firehouse with him, so that's what I'm sure he was wanted to be like, and what he wanted to do. And then my dad came on the fire department in '78, I believe. So like that was a whole different influence. But I think probably you're right. I think that was what everyone's trying to do that in everything we do, right? So it's always looking back at that next generation, even in music. Like how many songs can you write? They're all the same notes, right? So it's just about how you arrange them differently and then put your spin on it. And I think that's the beauty of the fire service, is that we can look back at all these generations, but we put a modern day spin on everything. But we have to be careful with that, because the modern day spin doesn't necessarily mean complicating things or coming up with new ways to do things. Yes, new ways are good, but don't reinvent the wheel, because it's worked for a long time. And as fires change, and fires are changing with lithium ion batteries and just like the introduction of petroleum-based products and thermal pane windows during the late 80s into the 90s, that changed the game, but we're changing things again. So we have to be careful not to change the job. We have to be able to pivot within the job and still keep that creative side of it and not get caught up in the science side of it. And that's a fine balance that we're battling between fire industry versus fire service. We have to maintain that service tradition, that honor, and that training, but paralleling that with the science side of it. I think it's important to understand both sides, but it is truly understanding it and then living it.
Yeah, and you think about the changes just in your dad and my dad's time. I mean, my dad will be the first person to tell you, he's like, I don't understand what you guys are talking about. Like when he's in the kitchen with us, if we get talking about a fire or we just get talking about lithium ion batteries, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about or how any of this affects you, but you guys are so much smarter than we were when I was on the job. And I always like to remind him, I'm like, but Dad, you were smarter than the guys that came before you, because you had more knowledge and you were making, like you said, these pivots. And I think that's been, the pivots in the fire service in my career. And it's really weird. We were just talking about this last night, my wife and I. This is my 30th year in emergency services. I started as a volunteer cadet on the rescue squad when I was 16. Became an EMT in 96, but took the class in 95 when I joined. And in 30 years, how much has changed? I mean, I think I took a 9-hour CPR class. And to use the defibrillator, I had to wait till I was 18. And then I took a 12-hour class that had a 3-hour lecture taught by a cardiologist. I was 18 years old. What did I take out of that class?
Yeah, this is my 30th year as well in the fire service, and you're right. I was just thinking about that as well, like going back to some old photos of my parents' house recently, and we were flipping through some old photos, and it was funny to see the progression in 30 years, and the progression of just not only the fire service but like culture. Like the culture is progressing and it's changing, And I'm looking at some of these photos that were from the firehouse. They're my father's photos or whatever else. And it's like the kitchen table is still the kitchen table, but like today, it looks a little different, and it's because of the cell phone. And like I'm at work yesterday, and like it's the morning, and everyone's looking, and I'm sitting there with the one guy drinking our coffee, and there's 7 guys on the phone. Now, that's not a norm in my firehouse kitchen, but that moment, I just happened to glance and catch that, and I was like, man, my dad would be really pissed off right now if he saw this. You know, my grandfather would be out of his mind right now if he saw this. I'm just thinking these things, but in reality, the kitchen where I am is very, very, right? Very, very good. But
to think about that too, right? But you would also have if you went back to your fathers and even our starting in this, you would have 2 or 3 people with their newspaper up, not doing the same thing people are probably doing on their phone, right? We definitely did not notice that as much. And a lot of times, like when I know for 100%, when I was a rookie, if you messed with this dude's newspaper before he read it, you were hearing shit that whole tour. So you were actually waiting for him to finish the sections and then kind of seeing either who he handed it off to next or who grabbed it next to go. But I make that akin to like that almost. And I like what you said, that's not the norm in your firehouse, because I am sure there are shifts, companies, departments where no one's talking to each other anymore. I'm really fortunate where I work that is not the case on my shift in my house. We are very much engaged, but at any given time, and I'm just as guilty of it right here, I'm on my phone.
Oh, like, yeah. We all are. I mean, that's it. We're all on the phone.
Yeah.
It's just the way of life now. And like, I'm not fighting it. Like, I'm not fighting it whatsoever. But I think that sometimes, especially in our business, that camaraderie is important. And something that I think that we need to bring back is playing cards in the firehouse, playing dominoes in the firehouse, whatever it is that the culture of your kitchen once did. I'm very fortunate that where I was a firefighter, they play cards every weekend. They still play cards every weekend. Just the other night, I'm at work when the guy says, "Who's in for cards?" You know, and when that happens, the phones go down, cigars come out, everyone's laughing, joking, and they're just playing cards. You know, the meal's done, everyone's hanging out, and I think that's an important part of the fire culture that we need to get back to is simply playing a game of cards.
Yeah, no, we did it for years I mean, we did it so much on my shift that our administrative assistant who lived in the city I work in, some nights she would be like going home at 5 and she's like, "Hey, you guys playing tonight? Can I come back?" Yeah. Be like, "Sure, Miss Karen, come on back." And at like somebody would call her. I mean, maybe text. Nah, there's no way we were texting her then. Call her up and be like, "Hey, we're ready to go." And one night we had a job come in, right? And I don't know, like let's say it was like 9:30 or so. So she was like, guys were coming in on the recall, the overtime guys and the second alarm companies from other departments. And there she was sitting at the kitchen table, like with all of our stuff. They're like, "What are you doing here?" Like no one kind of knew. It was like our secret until we got outed that she was coming in to play cards with us at night.
Yeah. We actually had at my old place, we had a buff. I don't want to call him a buff. He was part of the family, but he rode every weekend. But he would come in, drive in from Jersey across the bridge into the city and play cards. And he'd be there till 3 a.m. playing cards sometime. Friday and Saturday, he'd come back. We have guys that would drive in from home to play in those games, you know, so it became like a real culture. We actually had a card table. They would push the kitchen table aside and bring out like that card table, you know, and guys would set up around that and just hang out, smoke cigars, and just laugh all night. And, you know, sometimes you come in the morning for the tour and the you know, the rigs are out, but the cards are still on the table. That means they were up playing cards all night, you know?
Yep. And then they had the call. And I see that too a lot with our younger guys. Cause again, now being one of the older guys, it's very different. You know, that camaraderie with them is, I feel like the same as it was with me when I was in their shoes. And it's just important for us to keep that gap bridged, especially as becoming an officer. You know, you need that boss buddy relationship.
Yeah.
And I know when I first got promoted, it was pretty challenging to have that happen. You know, things changed. Like even, you know, when I got busier as a boss, we stopped working out as a tour, or the consistency stopped because I wasn't kind of spurring it along. And then over time, it just kind of faded away, sort of like how the cards do. But I think I'm seeing it resurge again, I guess is a good way to put it.
Going back to the gym, though, where you just said the working out, I think that is something that I'm not quite sure how I feel about working out at work. I think we should be working out at work, but I don't think we should limit guys of not working out. There's some firehouses that have rules like you can't go into the gym for the first year or the first 5 years. I think that's crazy. And like,
I can't.
As long as you get your work done, I think you should be able to go in the gym for like 30 minutes a tour or whatever. But working out, I think some firehouses take it a little more serious. And I like when the firehouses are physical. I like when that gym is active. And like, even if I'm not in it, I walk by, I know my guys are training. And,
and it's
when you're working out in the gym, yeah.
Like
I mean, I'm a runner.
Fun.
Like I'll be in that gym running every day, but they're in there and they're doing workouts together and they're talking, and I don't know. It's all part of like understanding where you fit in. Like, so if you're in the gym, you're working out, one guy's in that machine, you're eyeing that machine up, then you go to that next, and you're kind of passing around, tones go off, you go out the door. It's all part of the experience,
The experience is the best part of being a firefighter, right? And nobody wants to talk about that because they all want to just talk about the last job they went to or their culture or their aggressiveness, kind of like you said before with that, like, oh, firefighter, blah, blah, blah. Just talk about your experience, man. I have had the highest high. It's like being a parent, right? Highest highs possible, lowest lows possible within the fire service in my career.
Yeah. Even after you're a bad tour, though, like you take a shower and then you're driving home. At least for me, I'm like, man, I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want to do it 100%. Again, like, so it's even you have the worst tour and you think, I got to get the fuck out of here. Once you're in that car driving home, you instantly miss it,
Yeah. Because again, I'm thinking more of this, getting into the twilight here with a couple years left, a few years left. Like, I have to be prepared for that last time, the gear goes away and you walk out the door and you're never going to come back. You're going to come back to visit, but you're going to come back as a visitor, as a retired guy. And I am not taking it lightly because it's going to be effing hard, man.
People always talk about like police and fire and it's your identity and that's why it's so hard to retire. There's some truth to that, but especially with the fire department is that, yes, it's identity, but it's family. It's who you are. It's from inside you. It's not a job title, right? And and it's not an identity. Like you may be a firefighter, but like it's about the laughs. It's about the tears. It's about all that. And when you walk out that door, it's like walking away from your family for 20 plus years, and you can always go back, but it's never the same. Never.
It can't be. There's just even knowing enough retired guys now. I mean, I know more retired guys than I do guys on the job is an easy way to put it, right? Where like, I shouldn't say I'm closer to more retired guys than I am the folks coming up below me. Just because I spent more time with them, and you see that in them. And, it's a matter of how you do it and also remembering those experiences, I feel like you're a really probably good historian with it all, where, my dad told me that day one, just write some stuff down. You'll want to do that as the years go on. And I look back and I'm like, damn, I should have listened to Russ.
Yeah. A very, very good friend of mine, he just retired recently. And Christmas, I texted him and said, Merry Christmas. And I said, what's it like? And he goes, it finally hit me that I don't have to worry about being at work for Christmas. Have a guy coming early, have a guy been late, whatever it may be. We're not doing Christmas in the firehouse this year. And it was that's when it really hit him. And he said he missed it. He missed having that responsibility of having to be there at some part of the holiday. Now, as it's nice not to think about it, you can be home with your family, but there's also an element of like you're missing your other family on Christmas, and that's the firehouse family. So that was when it really, really set in. And he didn't go on his own account. He got pushed off the job for an injury. But I think it's very important that when it's time to go, you have to be able to walk out that door on your own account. I think that's important for a healthy future of retirement, is that you're going when you're ready to go. When you get pushed off the job, it makes it very difficult to move on with your life.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because you were not ready. Like I said, I am currently it's almost 4 years to the day. Next week, it'll be 4 years to the day. And I'm slowly starting to prepare myself for it, for what that's going to be like, because that family end, and it's just like you described, National Fire Radio as a family. Like, we all are that extra family. I was fortunate with 555 to have that family. I have a thing on my wall. It says, above all else, the 555 family. And that was all the folks who I came in contact with, just like even those 94 people I've interviewed, I consider them part of the family, and we're not, there with each other every day. It's just like the firehouse. You're there for 24 hours with them, and then You're not for 72. And by the time you see each other again, you miss each other.
You know, I could have left the job 4 years ago and retire. And, everyone has a plan, right? For some point. And I'm always like, yeah, I'll do 25 years. And that sounds good. Well, that's not happening. I'll tell you that right now. Right. So now I'm thinking 30 years. Right. And I'm thinking, I'm not ready for that either. I mean, God willing, if I can get on that rig, I'll be getting on that rig. I feel like, because it's just who I am. But I'm not ready to go anywhere. And I think that's what separates the fire department from, say, the police department, where those guys know their exact retirement date down to the exact minute. You ask any fireman when it's time to go, he's like, yeah, I got a couple years left. I got this. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it. I'm weighing my options. In reality, they're trying to deal with what it's like to not go to work anymore emotionally. It's not necessarily weighing out financial options. Maybe a little bit. You're not going to disregard the financial side of retirement, but I don't think that's always what it's about, because they say at a certain point of your career, you start losing money going to work. At that, whatever that ratio is in your pension, I don't know how that works. I never even looked at it.
It's different everywhere, different wherever you are. You know what I mean? For whatever.
Like with us, they
is.
say, like past 25 years, you start losing money coming to work, apparently, right? And I don't know if it's an urban myth or what, but like guys come to work for 40 years losing money because they love it. So it's not about the financial side of it with retirement. I think it's when you're truly, truly ready to go,
You have to be ready to go, right? But you also have to wonder, when you have someone that's been doing it for 40 years or so, like, is this all they have? Like, I'm trying to find a replacement. And listen, there is no replacement for what it is we do and how we do it, right? But by building these bonds with people like you from different departments, being a part of, even this, like, I had always thought when I was going to retire that I would, go pick up a job somewhere else, doing the same thing, being a firefighter or working on an ambulance or something. But I'm getting to the point where I've seen there's so many other things out there that I want to try other things. Like, I got to do this I had the honor of doing this amazing career for 25 years. And now it's time to see what else it is I could do, and I learned that when I started traveling more with 555 and getting into the fitness industry and realizing how many of these skills that I didn't even know I necessarily possessed, because it's just what we do on an emergency scene, translate into other things, and being recognized by people in that industry for doing what I just think is my job, or like the way we did things. It just amazed me. So that's kind of my prep work, to be like, I do have other skills, marketable skills. One of them may be communicating, right? Because we have to be good communicators. But that is exciting me. Well, I'm going to try to make it as exciting as getting hired at 25. How about that?
Yeah. I think it's important, though, that like what you just said is that there are other things in life. And I struggle with that, obviously, because I love going to work. There's no place I'd rather be than either with my children or at work in the firehouse. And it's hard to balance life because I have all these other hobbies. Like I played music my whole life. I've skateboarded my whole life, fishing, running, all these passions I have that I've realized now doing this, the podcast, and doing top floor tactics and all that, and writing, that right now that I guess is my passion. Writing's always been my passion, but I'm realizing that I'm losing sight of other things I love. I still love running. I still make time for that. But on that run, I'm thinking about what I'm writing, you know? So it's like, it kind of goes, it's like where I clear my head and get creative is during my run. I haven't surfed in probably a year and a half. The last time I was in the water with a surfboard, when I used to surf like weekly, and I don't live by the ocean anymore. So it would be like, I'd have to commit to doing it. And I don't make time for that. So I do struggle with all that of like trying to get back to the core values of what I really enjoy beyond the fire service. And I think it's important, if you don't have anything else, to find something else. If you're into ropes, like a lot of guys are into ropes within the job, and they find a love in ropes. I don't find a love in ropes whatsoever, but maybe get into rock climbing. That way you can still somewhat train and master your craft, but you're doing something recreation, do something physical, like scuba diving. If you're in a special ops, right? And they do, but with us, we have scuba. Like, well, if you have scuba, maybe go on some scuba trips and go to the Caribbean and do scuba diving. But just getting back to what you're saying, I think it's important we have things beyond the fire service. And I have a lot of things outside the fire service. Time management is really hard. Trying to run, not a business, but trying to go and do my speaking events and doing the podcast and then writing. I've lost sight of the things I truly love. And that's in 2025, I told myself, like, all right, this is what I'm doing this year. I'm going to stay motivated with the writing, stay motivated with the podcast, keep being consistent, but I want to get back to the foundation of who I am outside this job, because this job
Yeah.
can be taken from you at any moment,
Yeah. And your life can be taken from you at any moment in it too, right? And that's the things that I try to keep in my forefront, because I definitely went down that road of being too involved in the job and the things encompassing the job and not the other things in my life. And I feel like COVID kind of re-grounded me, I guess is a good way to put it, that time frame. But especially like with the kids and trying to be present for them and in all the things that they're doing, all while still trying to have things for me, right? Like that little bit of gym time, like for you, like you're running or you're writing, and I feel like too at this point, like setting goals. Like Tracy and I did those 52 out of 52 dates last year. We set a goal and we accomplished it. If you can set a goal to surf 5 days this year, that's very measurable and probably doable, right? And at the end of 2025, you're going to feel so good because you got those 5 surfing days in if that's what's important to you.
It is important. I should write that down because my last vacation, I made it a point with Mike Dillon from your job. We're surfing buddies, and he called me and said, hey, let's get in the water. I said I can't this week, and I go, but I have vacation coming up. I promise you, I'm going to meet you down there, and we're going to do it. And vacation came and went. I never did it. It's like, when I was running with a running group, we ran every Tuesday, and it was all about accountability. And one guy shows up, you better be there with them. And it's even more so, you meet friends who love running. So I met one of my dearest friends now, and we haven't run together in, I feel like, years almost because of time allowance. He's running every day, I'm running every day, but we're running at different times. Not just life that gets in the way, but there's times where he'll call me and be like, I'm going to be here at 7 a.m. We're doing this, be here, right? And you wake up and the last thing you want to do is go out in the cold and run, but he's waiting for you. So I think finding a partner in some of the things that you love, it's important because it'll hold you accountable. And when you're accountable, you're consistent. And then consistency in everything is success. So like you said, they're writing it down. That's probably the best move,
Yeah, and making that time, right? And it is so hard. Like, I'm sure, and you got to remember too, like you're on vacation with your family, right? And you're like, all right, Dill, I'm gonna surf with you for sure. But then he's got his family and he's got his work. He's not on vacation with you that week, and so then your time just keeps limiting. It's like going out with old friends, like Tracy and I are literally this morning. We have a night planned loosely with my old EMS partner from 5 years ago, I guess, however long it's been, and we stayed friends. We have a dinner planned with them in like 4 weeks because that's what we have to do with our schedule. But if I write it down, I type it down on that calendar, it's going to happen, And those are things that when we were younger, when you were surfing with Dill, it didn't matter, man. You jumped in that green POS car of his and drove down to the beach, right?
Yeah, I remember that thing. We'd go down, we'd surf Asbury Park before it was Asbury Park, right? It was all abandoned. It had that Hojo was on the boardwalk, right? That Howard Johnson. It was round. It's abandoned, right? The only thing was open was the bar, but there was no beer in there. It was a cooler of beer with Bud Heavies in it. And there was some old man that would come out of the back. He's like, can I help you? And we'd come in there in our wetsuits, and like we'd just crushing Bud Heavies, drinking out of a cooler. There's old abandoned hotel, man. Like the old Asbury Park was legit,
It's still legit. It's just different. Not legit like it was then, though, for sure.
I liked it better the old way.
Yeah, I liked it better I liked it better about 6 years ago than it is today. But I still go.
I was on my phone just scrolling, and something popped up about this morning actually about the best coffee shops in Asbury Park. And I'm like, interesting. There's actually coffee shops. So like in Asbury Park, I remember like 1 or 2 of them. There's tons of them, and it's a small little town.
Yeah.
So everyone raved about this one certain one. I don't want to say the name. So I'm like, let me check it out. So I go to the website to look at it. It's closed. Like, how are you the best coffee shop in Asbury Park and you're open Thursday through Sunday?
Well, it's the winter. It is the winter, though. Like, I
don't care, man. When you're a small shop, when you're a small store, man, you have to be open every single day. Every single day, or I'm going to Starbucks. If I pull up on a Tuesday and you're closed because it's mental health day, I'm out. I'm never going again. Starbucks, that's it.
You're like a super coffee snob, right? Like I think we talked about this.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But
'Cause
sometimes
again,
nothing beats like a nice ghetto deli coffee, like a bodega coffee.
oh yeah,
Sometimes
bodega
that's
coffee is the way to go.
yeah. So like, and not that's bad coffee, but like it's all about again, it's about the art behind it and just the way it's prepared. That's why I like certain coffees and the way the beans are harvested and the way they're roasted. I mean, there's so much that goes behind it that uh it's not so much I'm a snob, but I appreciate different coffees from different parts of the country, and I also appreciate the shitty coffee as well.
Yeah, I think you have to appreciate both, right? I mean, I love nothing more than a cup of Firehouse Swill in the morning because hey, that's what we got. But then other days, somebody's breaking out the French press or the percolator and making some
Yeah,
espresso with really good
exactly.
beans that are fresh ground, and you're like, yeah, let's go, man. This is fun today. I don't need to do it every day, but it's interesting because when I was just in Australia, coffee culture in Australia is on a whole different level than here. And Gerard is from Melbourne in Victoria. We spend our time in Sydney, and Sydney coffee is not as good as Melbourne coffee. So literally, he's like, you have to come back just to experience Melbourne coffee now that you've experienced Sydney coffee. So that's my reason to go back to Australia is coffee,
Nice, nice.
essentially.
Sometimes I crave just 7-Eleven coffee with like extra creamer in it, like which is disgusting. But like the hazelnut creamer, like that brings me back to high school. Like sometimes flavors bring you back to a moment. And like so I was craving that the other day and I stopped in like the 7-Eleven where like I grew up just to have a 7-Eleven coffee with extra hazelnut creamer. It was disgusting. I felt sick right after it. But like that the first time it hits you, you're like, yeah, it brings you right back. I'm really into the coffee crystals now too. Have you seen these? It's like old
I have
Sanka
not.
instant coffee, but it's fair trade organic. I forget the name of the brand right now I'm drinking, but it's delicious, man. It's game changing coffee and it's always fresh. You make it as if you're making tea almost, it's hot water and you put the crystals in and you have a fresh cup right in your hand.
I'm having so much fun talking to you. I've wrote down no notes except coffee crystals to check them out because I am a
Oh
coffee
yeah.
snob. I won't deny the fact that I'm not. Like I can't do. I mean, I can if it's the only coffee there, but Dunkin' Donuts, I'm out. Totally out on their coffee.
Yeah. I don't like it
Always
there.
burnt, inferno hot. Can't stand it.
You know what? I know what I hate about Dunkin' Donuts is that they're not consistent. You go to one Dunkin' Donuts one day, it's great. You go back the next day, it's a shitty cup of coffee. It's like, how do you not have a consistency in what you're selling in your product?
It's horrible.
I mean,
Horrible.
like all the donuts suck there, right? But the coffee should at least be solid, and it's not. Like you said, it's hit or miss.
Yeah, definitely hit or miss. I'm not a fan. I stick with the Wawa, Quick Check, 7-Eleven. Like if I'm on the road, I'm looking for those.
Like if you go to one Starbucks in New York City, and then you go to one in wherever Bergen County, it's the same exact product, different
100%.
prices. That's one thing with Starbucks I've noticed, at least in New York
Different
City,
prices.
right? Yeah. So if you go from a Starbucks that's in a not so great neighborhood, which there aren't too many Starbucks, but you get one that's on that cusp of like good neighborhood, bad neighborhood, it's
Yep.
a lot cheaper than the ones that's in the real rich neighborhood. And it's about $1.50 difference in the cup of coffee.
Go to the hood Starbucks then. No doubt
Yeah.
on that one. Like
Well, that's what we do. Yeah. We go to that borderline one.
it's much better when you just shoot over there. And
And I'm
again,
not
like
even
you
a big
said,
Starbucks guy. It's consistency that brings
yeah,
me there because I know
I
what
agree.
I'm getting.
I like the Starbucks, like the cold brews and things. Like I feel like they do those way better than anyone else
Yeah.
does. So I like to go there for those, especially in the summer. It's a good spot.
But the crystals, man, you can do hot coffee, and then in the summer you make the cold brew with it, and it's the best cold brew you have.
Oh, see, I got to get that because my driver on the ladder, all he drinks is iced coffee year round.
Yeah.
So he would be totally into this crystal thing. So that may have to be a little fun winter experiment at
Yeah.
the house one day as we've been.
I'll send you
acting it
the brand when we get off this.
Nice. Maybe we can get the podcast sponsored by it. That's something too. Jay's talking about this like, clubhouse studio thing that's coming. And I'm like, hope we have a good coffee maker there. Like, or like there's a coffee shop across the street or something that's really good. I didn't
We
ask
just
that
have a
question
nice
yet.
case of crystals.
A nice case of crystals, maybe easier, right? You just need the hot water and you're in.
Yeah, man.
We got at my firehouse, we have that tea pot thing that just heats up the water to inferno level because we'll do tea occasionally too. But for the crystals, that thing would be perfect.
That tea thing's pretty good. We have that at the academy. So like, and it doesn't take long. You hit that button, you click it, and within like a minute and a half, you have perfect tea, perfect temperature for tea.
It's no
I'm a big
joke.
tea guy. I'm a big tea guy. Like, I drink a lot of tea in the winter. Barry's tea is my go-to. If you ever have a Barry's tea, it's absolutely delicious.
I
But
think I have. I think I have.
yeah,
I like tea. I don't want to say I'm a big tea guy, but you know, it. So again, if I don't know why I'm talking about COVID today. I was drinking way too much coffee in COVID. I was effing wired, like 4 cups a day, even at home. Like the afternoon cup that only happens at the firehouse. It was like I needed that. Like I had to come off coffee. Is that a good way to put it? Like I had to have a come
yeah.
down, and tea kind of replaced that in the afternoon for me. So I did a lot of tea then.
Years ago, when I was a very, very young fireman, like maybe my first or second year, I was drinking so much coffee out of being nervous. Like, you're just nervous. Like, you're like, oh, and so you stand in the kitchen. So you just start drinking coffee. You can just stand in the kitchen. You don't want to miss anything, right? And you go do your work. You come back, you grab a cup of coffee, and just so you're being present, to the point where I started to get the shakes. I went to the doctor. I was like, Doc, I'm shaking. I don't know what's wrong. So they did all these tests. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Finally, they realized that I was ODing on caffeine. So he's like, cut back your coffee. I was drinking like 2 pots a day, you know?
You might want to have a little bit less of that, right?
Yeah.
Those nerves, man. Like it's crazy to think back of those nerves where like it was just you weren't on edge, but you were always on edge because, like you said, you didn't want to miss anything, you didn't want to mess up. You were just kind of like there. And when I see it now, I try to tell the younger folks like, just calm down. Everything's gonna be okay. You know, like you'll be all right. But it doesn't help because you just can't get rid of that. And that to me is another sign that you love being there.
Never forget this one boss I had. I never liked him, but I was a probie. It was like probably my second week in the firehouse, and I fill up the mop bucket, right? And it's old school mop bucket where you step on one side, put your foot down, you hit, and then pedal kicks it and then squashes it out, right? It's this old metal one. It's probably from 1950. I fill it up, I get it all ready, and I step on the wrong side of it, and it tips over, and it goes flying all over the bunk room. The boss is standing there, and I never forget, he looks at me, he's like, kid, calm down. Don't be so nervous. This job's easy. You'll figure it out. And he walks away. I was like, that motherfucker, you know? But like, I never liked that guy to this day. I remember that though. It was so many years ago, but I remember how I felt in that moment. And just those nerves, right? I was nervous. I stepped to the wrong side of the mop bucket, and that was it, right? But I guess you live and learn. You never make that mistake twice.
No, because you'll be mopping for days when you do that, especially in the bunk room, right?
Yeah.
Dude, this has been fun. We spent 10 minutes talking about coffee. So I'm wondering if there's going to be either like an uptick in listenership or a downtick in the coffee talk there at the end.
Just as long as, I mean, we started off saying we're not talking about fires, so.
We didn't talk about we talked a little bit about tactics, but not much. Like not necessarily tactics. We just talked about some art in firefighting. So I think it's okay.
Yeah.
And our friends in firefighting. Yeah, and the good parts of that personality and the things that look, it's what makes you and me and Dylan and Jeremy and Sebi and all of us is this thing we have in common, this firefighting thing. And I do not take that lightly, you know, that stewardship of the fire service.
I mean, that's the beauty of the fire service, is that it doesn't matter anything in life, what you do, what you believe in, your race, your color, your gender, none of that matters, because when you walk through that big red door, when those 4 walls, we're all brothers and sisters, and that's all that matters. And on the fire floor, it really doesn't matter, because you can't see who's next to you. As long as they have a standard, they withhold that standard, and they do the right thing, and we're all on the same page. We have company integrity, we have love, we have compassion, we have loyalty. That's the fire service, and that's why it's so addictive. That's why we all love it so much.
I hate you, man. You're so much better at this than I am. That was so you like waxed some Eric B and Rakim poetic right there. Like, like I hear the beat in the background. Like I'll give you that audio clip, and you can just put the beat in the background and play it over a cool, 1970s Bronx is Burning video, and you're in.
All right, sounds good. As long as it's Eric B, though.
It could be definitely Eric B. Why not? Just don't get caught in like some kind of copyright infringement. I don't know how those things work.
Yeah, they're pretty strict with some of that. What I do hate is that when you do post a video and it does well, or a reel, all the reel is just to get the algorithm. What people don't realize, like why do you put videos to music and then put words behind it? Because it's all about that's like the balance to get it out there. Because if you don't do it all together, you don't make the reel, you don't put the right music with it, and some of the music, it has to be trending in the time, then it just dies in the feed, and that's what kind of sucks about it. But you do all that, someone will challenge that copyright sometimes, and then the post gets knocked and it gets locked, and then it's gone forever. So that's kind of the problem with using some of the music, but whatever.
Well, they've gotten better too, though, because you're giving the artist the credit now. I think we're in the beginning. Like, I know still to this day, if I log into the 555 page, we're getting whatever they are, the complaints about like music in the background of the workout. Like it'll be someone working out in a gym with music playing, and they're still complaining about that. Or like we're not giving the artist credit like they do now.
Really?
Yeah, it's always fun and exciting. Whatever. Social media, huh? That's topic for a different day.
Yeah. And photography. Before we go, I want to touch on that. I think that's a good topic. Is that
go ahead?
We have a lot of people taking photos, right, and a lot of buffs out there. And I think it's great, and I definitely see the uptick in my job with some really, really, really good photographers doing amazing work. But we have to realize that, like, yes, you're capturing a moment, and there's art behind that. But my personal opinion is you don't own that moment. That moment's mine. I created that moment for you to share. So it's a fine line of whose art is it? Is it the firefighter's art or is the photographer's art? I think we have to come to an agreement of whose art that is. I think one hand shakes another, but we have to be careful when we're pushing back on people and we're claiming that moment of theirs, as in the photographer captured a moment, when truly the art was made by the firefighter.
And
something
you do
to think
see,
about.
It is, and I love it when you do see the photographers kind of giving the firefighter the credit, or the subject the credit, more than trying to take the credit for it themselves. And again, we're in that society now where like when you pull up and this is all you see, and you really have to keep that in mind in every situation you're in these days, whether it's on the job or off the job. There's just a huge thing in the news about an Eagles fan who is no longer going to be watching Eagles games or working, apparently, because again, some choices he made were captured. And now we're getting away from the art, so I want to get back to the art. That was my own fault.
Well, that's what happens when you mix in Eagles fans.
True, it is true. And I'm gonna go here. We'll get off this Eagles topic real quickly, but I'm disappointed Mickey didn't have his Yankees hat on because I wore my Mets hat. And when he said he didn't want to talk about firefighting, I'm like, cool. We can talk about like, are you really a Yankees fan, or do you just do it because a Yankee hat is cool?
No, I'm a Yankees fan, man. Like,
okay, diehard. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather, we're just a Yankee family. That's what it is,
Are you all New York sports then?
No, Knicks, obviously. Yankees, and then I'm a Dolphins fan for football.
Oh,
Devils fan for for hockey, and I guess that's it, really. But
well, there are
Notre Dame because I didn't go to college. I'm a Notre Dame fan mainly because I don't have any other team to root for.
You watched the movie Rudy and you became a Notre Dame fan.
Yeah, like I didn't go to college. I was like, well, I guess that's the Americans football college team. It's something we don't have in New York City. We don't have a good college football team. And Rutgers got good recently. I mean, they used to be horrible back in the day, but Rutgers has come a long way.
They're getting there. They are getting there, and it's been a fun ride to be on, because again, working there, I mean, we have some diehard Rutgers fans. We have some diehard Notre Dame fans too. But some of these guys, like, it's just my heart bleeds for them and their love for Rutgers and the consistent letdown that occurs.
I don't think Rutgers marketed it right. At least their sports program is because there is a huge void for a college football team and a college basketball team in the New York City area. We have some teams, but we don't have a level like Rutgers, and Rutgers has come a long way, but I think they can market it better and have a broader scale of fan base within the tri-state area is what I'm trying to say, because there's so much fun behind it. Like, I've been to the games, I've been to the parties, like Rutgers has a good thing going, man. There's a lot of fun down there.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and they're getting better at it. And here we are, we're college football or college sports experts here now because we're firefighters. But just keeping New Jersey talent, the amount of high school talent that leaves New Jersey to go to a Notre Dame or Alabama or UNL. I don't know, is UNLV still good in basketball, or Duke? Duke.
Duke.
You could have kept. I mean, I went to high school with Jason Williams. He could have went to Rutgers, but instead who's going to go to Rutgers to play basketball when you can go to Duke. So I think they missed that chance that they had in the 80s and 90s, and now they're just trying to play catch up. So we'll see what happens. It's fun.
They're doing a good thing, though.
Yeah, no, they're definitely coming a long way. I mean, listen, I used to work EMS there when there were almost more cops and EMTs in the game than there were fans.
Yeah.
Like more
Right.
workers in the stadiums and fans. I also worked, towards the end of my career, the games that were selling out, and they were throwing people out for jumping the fence to sneak in. So it was fun to be there for that too. But cool. Well, now we know a little bit more about you at the end of the podcast, where you should probably do that in the beginning, but I suck at this. So where can folks find you that don't know where to find you, by the way?
So Facebook is not a place to find me. And so everything I do on Instagram, it's parallel to Facebook and it shares on both sides, but I've logged into the Facebook account maybe twice since for years, just about probably. So
I don't even follow you on Facebook.
Yeah. I hope no one really does, because a lot of stuff doesn't translate. So it'll share what I do on Instagram to Facebook, but it doesn't share it properly. I'm almost tempted just to take out the Facebook completely, but there's some benefits of having them both going, I guess. But so if you want to reach out to me, don't do it through Facebook or any messenger device through that platform. Everything is on Instagram. So you can DM me there. But with the DMs, unfortunately, they filter them. I have no control of it. So sometimes I get them, sometimes I don't get them. Sometimes I'll find them a month later and they get buried very quickly. So you can email me at topfloortactics@gmail.com. Not that it's a real professional email at gmail.com, okay, but that's how you can get out to
works. Me. Gmail works.
It does work.
Right?
Yeah.
Listen, I love using Gmail because I know when I send something to someone at Gmail and I'm coming from the Gmail account, they're going to get it, as opposed to when you're not, right? Like it works, and that's why I like to use it.
That's exactly why I haven't gotten like a Top Floor Tactics at topfloor.com or whatever. It's because exactly what you just said. You know it's going to get there because it has that Gmail almost like stamp of approval on it. So, yeah.
And it's a great program to use. Like listen, I use Apple everything, like tech wise, like hardware wise, I guess. But I use Google all the other stuff, all the software.
I do as well,
right?
And I try to get out of that loop, but it's just so much more convenient.
Yeah, no, it's so easy. Like, and even the same, like with my family, like we all have iPhones. So going to Australia, all of our photos went to one album. I'm able to track everybody really easy, like all that kind of stuff. So, it's just the way it works, but it doesn't have to be professional. Look at us, man. We're firefighters that get to have a lot of fun and talk to people. So
yeah. You have an Apple Watch?
I do have an Apple Watch. Yep.
That's my next project. I want to figure out how to get one of those, or at least learn about them.
It's cool. It's just one more thing that I have. I like the workout tracking. I like the sleep tracking of it. And I'm a pretty good sleeper, but it's good to see those numbers. It's just kind of like a new challenge sometimes. But I don't use the watch to its full potential like some people do.
I was reading about it the other night at work. It's just there's so much, man. There's so much on that.
And it's the same as like this program we use for the podcasting. They're updating them constantly. Like I can't keep up with what's new or what's, the kids actually help me more because they're like, oh, did you see the new feature on the phone? I'm like, no, tell me about it. Or like, yeah, I did. Yeah. But what do you think of it? To try to act like I know what I'm talking about and I don't. Cool, man.
You asked me where I was going to be. I'm just going to pull it up real quick.
Yeah, where are you going to be? I forgot about that one. I did ask you that. He's got to go to the Google Calendar.
I'm really unorganized with this, so that's why I have to actually pull this up and look at it. So I'm not sure when this is actually going to be aired, but next Saturday.
Next week. So this Saturday, it'll be already passed. Go to the next one.
Okay, so don't worry about that. So February 7th, I'm in Arkansas, and that's the Hometown Hero Conference. And February 13th, that's a Morse playing. That's a closed event. But then Joey D in Texas, talk about that a little bit. So that's February 21st. That's a really great group to be a part of, and I'm really honored to be part of the Joey D seminar. So go to the website, check that out. That's in Houston, Texas on the 21st with a ton of guys. And
huge shout out to the Joey D Foundation. My department is now purchasing us escape belts and systems, thanks in part to the Joey D Foundation. So, they helped us out with that purchase. Yeah, it was great.
No shit, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Just a bit. Yeah, it's brand new. They haven't come in yet, so we haven't made that official announcement. But yeah, we were able to get some help in our purchase, which is always good because how money goes in the fire service. So it's always good when
if your
someone wants to step up.
If your department's looking for the bailout system, you can reach out to them. put in for a grant, and they have a different way of how they pick people, and it's not they just randomly pick people. There's a whole science behind it, but if it is something that you are looking into, just reach out to them. Kevin's really easy to work with, and he can set you up with that.
I think that's one of the best things about them too. And again, from running a not-for-profit, I had nothing to do with this per se, aside from like advisory type stuff. But the folks that did it from my department, they said it was a really smooth process, and they were really happy to be a part of it. So I'm really hoping, some folks from my department are going to start to look to them for some training and things like that too. There's a lot of us, so we should be looking to give back to the people who gave to us to help us out. So it's going to be cool to get those rolled out this year.
Yeah, and the hands-on side of it. So I do the lecture side of that, obviously, but I did the lecture in Long Island this past November, and I walked the training grounds that day. It's amazing. It's amazing the amount of staff they have helping you. The people they have helping you are the best firefighters in the world, and it's just that hands-on training it's something else. So it's something worth looking into in the area if you're in the tri-state area, but that's way out in Long Island, and that's next November. So if you're in the Northeast, that's a great conference to be a part of. Where else? So I'm in Bergenfield, right, with Mike Champo on February 15th. That hasn't been released yet. It'll be released probably next week. So this is perfect timing when this comes out. So that's coming up quickly though. So February 15th, that's me and Mike doing that. March 2nd in Iowa with the craft culture. And then Alabama, that's sold out, but that's a hands-on training. We do it every year. It's run through the National Firefighters Training Foundation, which is a great group. I'm very honored to be on the board of directors for that. So that's 100% nonprofit, and we bring trainings all over the country, and it's just growing and growing and growing. We just signed a deal with Albuquerque Fire Department in New Mexico. We're going out there in May with the foundation. We were just in Mississippi with the foundation. So there's a lot going on with that. So check out the National Firefighters Training Foundation. Check out the website. Because that's growing and growing every single day. And we're trying to bring training to every department that doesn't have the funding to bring in world around instructors from any level, from any department, but they don't have the means to do that. And we're trying to be able to bring you training for absolutely free at no cost to you and your department. It's just through all donations and through a nonprofit.
That's awesome, man. Watching this change, the growth in all this, it's funny you mentioned Champ, because he was like the first, like, let's say, celebrity firefighter guy that threw 555 that I met when we were at a conference. Very early on, we were at Andy Frederick's together, and he was like, "Yeah, I heard of you guys," and I was like, "Wait, you heard of us?" Like, again, it was one of those like aha moments. And then like an hour later, he was challenging my partner in 555, Ava, to a push-ups contest in the bar. So
I love it.
What a great night that was. And she beat him.
Mike's an amazing man.
He really is. So it's cool that you're going to be with him. I'm hoping I can make it the 15th. I'm trying to think what I got going on that night, if I have anything, but I will, I'll keep an eye out for that. And then I've never heard of the other thing you're doing either. So that's awesome that you made mention of that. So
yeah, so that's been slowly growing behind the scenes, and we didn't want to just roll it out there, wait until we were ready. And this is all Anthony Rowett from Port City Fire Training. He's spearheading this. This is his whole operation. I'm just very honored and to be a part of it, because it's Todd Edwards, Anthony Rowett, and a bunch of group of other guys. But they're the two guys that are names you would recognize from teaching or whatnot. But did you lose me?
No, you clicked a little bit, but you're there.
I don't see you anymore because Jeremy just called and it knocked you out. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, freaking Jeremy. He probably wants to come on the show. Yeah, I don't know if you can still hear me. Anthony Rowett, though, is one person that's on my short list of people to get on the show. I just haven't contacted him yet.
Yeah, contact him, have him on, and because he's big into the workout thing as well, but he could give you all the National Firefighters Training Foundation information, because I think it's going to really change the game for fire training on a national, global level, really, because he's bringing it free to your front door of any instructor you want, so.
Free 99, man. And as firefighter, if it's free, it's for me, right?
Yeah. And there's some other dates, but you can check that out on my website if you want. But so
cool.
I appreciate it.
I just want to be your like travel assistant if I can be, like, I'll carry the bags. I'm small. I fit in the overhead compartment. Like, no one knows I'm there.
I definitely overbooked myself going February and March, but it is what it is.
Good for you, bro. All right, let's hit the size up 10, because Jeremy's calling you, and chances are good he may end up calling me next, but probably not, because he doesn't like me as much as he likes you. So I know that much. I tell him that all the time. I'm not cool. I don't wear a Yankee hat all the time, so I'm not cool.
Well, you have a Mets hat. That's why he doesn't like you.
Listen, again, we like to be hated. That's why we're Mets fans, man. Everyone can hate us, right? Hate everything we're doing. Oh, Pete Alonso is never going to go to the Mets. He still may come back. Like everybody wants to say he's not, but we'll see. We shall see. Anyhow, great World Series this year, by the way. I don't know how you felt about it, but I felt it was amazing.
No comment.
I was like, did he hear me or is he just ignoring me?
I heard you. I was going to let it go, but.
All right, here we go. Size up 10. Beach or mountains? Which one are you picking?
You can't appreciate one without the other, I don't think.
Oh, okay. You can pick both. Some people pick both, so I'll let you. A night out or a night in?
Night out.
Whoa, see, I was figuring you a night in type of guy.
You know what? I'm trying to embrace that. I'm trying to embrace the night in. I'm having a hard time.
It's hard. It's hard and it's not. It depends on what it is.
The older I get, though, I am starting to rather be in than out sometimes, but I think if I had to choose, I would go for a good night out.
I think I may change this question for 2025 now. All right, let's change it. This is the first time. So night out, night in, or day drinking?
I don't like day drinking.
No? Okay.
No. I do like happy hour, though. If I can say a good happy hour out versus a night in, I'll take the good happy hour
What
out.
if I say, how about instead of we'll change it from day drinking, like in by 7, like in by 8-ish, like that? That's what I like. I like to be in by 7 or 8.
If my day drinking starts past 3 p.m., I'm in. Anything prior to 3 p.m., unless it's St. Patrick's Day and I'm drinking Guinness, I'm out.
How about a movie everyone needs to see?
Movie everyone needs to see. Well, I think we should be looking at the original Red Dawn at this point because that's what's really happening in life, and we have to prepare ourselves. This will be a training exercise watching that movie.
Watching Patrick Swayze and the Wolverines save us from the invaders.
I know every single word to that movie.
It's a classic movie. It definitely is. I never saw the new. Did you watch the new one? I didn't even watch the new one.
It was on at the firehouse, and I refused to watch it, so I walked out. But I was kind of glancing at it just to see what's going on. Didn't like it. Yeah,
no way. I could not get into it at all. I can imagine. Like if he's not, I need him. I need him in that the varsity jacket, like totally flaming hair, like in flowing through the battle scene. Great movie.
Yes, Charlie Sheen, Jennifer Grey.
In there. Jennifer Grey, shooting an M16 is just a whole different thought.
Yeah, right.
You're a young kid. Cross country road trip. You're on it. Who is your celebrity co-pilot going to be?
Celebrity co-pilot.
Or famous John Candy. Person. John Candy would be great. Would be great. No one's picked him yet either. So total. He's my guy. I love him. Uncle Buck, one of the best underrated movies ever made.
That Summer Rental is tremendous.
Summer Rental,
Planes, Trains, Automobiles is like the Thanksgiving classic. I could go on
standard Planes.
And there's so many movies where you don't realize he was in with a supporting role, like Spaceballs, and it goes on and on.
Do you know he did what's it called? Home Alone for like $250, and all of his lines were just ad lib, like nothing in the script.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I just read that right before Christmas this year.
I just found out around Christmas about Home Alone set being in a school gym. Totally ruined it for me.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's sad.
Oh, really? I'm sorry to ruin it for I won't repeat it then unless you want me to tell you.
I mean, you can now. You've already ruined, but that's kind of sad. No, there's a house though.
So they find the house, right? It's the absolute perfect house for the movie. So they recreated the house in a high school gym in the town because I guess the high school was abandoned or whatever for lack of enrollment. So they closed the school. But they had that gym. So they recreated every room in that house. And if you notice, every color in that movie, in the rooms, it's red, green. It has Christmas colors. They did that on purpose to make it a more festive look. But they cloned the house, and the only parts they used were the outside and a little, I think one spot, like right inside the door in one of the sections of the movie where it was the actual house. But really, it's just the exterior.
The red and greens make sense, though, because I'm picturing it in my head and seeing all those reds and greens. So, look at that. Fun fact for the night. All right, number 5. Do you make your bed every day?
Yes.
I figured as much. How about a book everyone needs to read? I need the theme show music.
Yeah. There's so many that I'm thinking of, but needs to read. Hopefully you can edit this pause.
It's dramatic.
I wasn't prepared for this. So
that's the point of this. Most people aren't prepared for these, right?
Yeah. I can't think of the name of it. I'm trying to think of the one.
You could say one of yours.
So I think a book that is important for the history of the fire service and American history in general it's not necessarily a book with any words in it. It's just a book that I think it's even just called Firehouse, but it's the pictures of every firehouse in New York City that lost somebody on September 11th. And it shows like the week after. And a photographer went out and documented every single firehouse and then put it into a book. So when you read that book, you can just feel the sadness. You can see the tears on the firefighters. You can see them just beat up, drained, tired, and it really brings you back to that moment. I think that's a book that it documents not only firefighting history, but really just American history in the sense of what the New York City Fire Department dealt with during those times.
And that book is right below me on my little desk here where all my books are. And that raw emotion, and it also speaks to that road back, that raw emotion of how they were feeling, but that time that we harken back to, less divisiveness and more togetherness as a country, and times that I think we are going to need more in the next upcoming future than we have ever needed before. So, that is a good one. It is right down somewhere below me. So very good. Which one are you taking, highways or back roads?
Back roads.
Always. How about a bucket list place to visit?
Bucket place. I would right now, nothing crazy. I was just talking about this the other day. Was what Napa Valley. I'd never been to Napa Valley before. Wine country. I think that'd be pretty cool to check that out.
I would love to go there. I have not been, but my wife has, and we keep talking about going back. So I would like to get out there. It's gorgeous, like from pictures, and a great food scene too. If you're a foodie like I am. All right, two more. What is it for you? Football or football?
Football.
I figured as much because you didn't have a football team when you were announcing any teams anywhere. So that's okay. All right, this whole thing has been advice, but the best advice you could give to your younger self.
Embrace humility. I think that humility, not only in the fire service, but in life, when you can embrace humility and you can own your mistakes, I think that's the forward progression of anything in life. So any young firefighter that's listening to this, I wish I knew as a young firefighter that I'm going to make mistakes and that we're supposed to make mistakes. That's why it's so important that we drain and we trill and we talk about the mistakes we make in real time, because without identifying, owning the mistakes, there's no way we can get better. So I think that humility moving forward in today's fire service is very, very important to identify and own it and then really embrace it to learn and to get better. And I think that because most of us in this business are type A personalities, it's a really, really hard feat to overcome, is that it's okay to make a mistake. So I think that's what I wish I could tell myself, because I really, really hard on myself. Like, I think we all are hard on ourselves, but I'm exceptionally hard on myself at certain things. And I just wish I wasn't.
Hey, man. And hey, old officers out there, embrace humility, right? Hey, folks who run social media pages out there, embrace humility, right? These are things that's something that we all need to do a better job at. Young, old, whatever you do in your life, man. And I love finishing with this question because it always gives me a good takeaway for the end. And I'm going to probably be thinking about that for the rest of today and when I'm on shift all day tomorrow. It's just to continue to embrace the humility, and hopefully for 2025, we as a dysfunctional National Fire Radio family will be able to do that as well together.
Yeah, big things coming in 2025. I'm excited to be a part of it, and I'm very excited to be able to go on this journey with you and Jeremy. So thank you so much for allowing me to come into your family, being the quote unquote newest member, I suppose at this point. But
let's go, Proby.
I'm really excited for the future though.
Love it, man. Thanks for being on today. This was great. As always, thanks to everybody for listening. 100 episodes. Go back, pick anyone. Let me know your favorite if you're still listening now. And until next time, for the Size Up by National Fire Radio, this is Pip. And remember, what you do off the job matters.
National Fire Radio.